All right. Hey there, YouTube. Welcome on back to the Solo RPG Show with their host. My name is Rob, Artichoke Dip, and with Don here of the Solo RPG Guy. And, well, we like to get together and talk about gaming, pulp culture, various things we're interested in. And, yeah, let's get the show started off. Here it is,
Yeah,
October.
basically it's just going to be two old guys talking about gaming and stuff. And we're going to answer any questions you got. So if you have a question, post it up there and we'll try to answer it for you. Because we know Solo RPG, that's one of those great mysteries of the world. How? What? Y'all are crazy. So hopefully we'll shed some enlightenment.
You had contacted me today, and I said, oh man, I had just gotten up. It was a late night for me. So I normally go to bed way farther earlier than that. But last night I went on opening night and saw the new Halloween movie. John Carpenter directed it, and of course, I'm trying to remember her name. Help me out here, Don.
Yeah, okay. Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife in True Lies. That actress. That's who you're talking about, though, right? You know what?
Jamie Lee Curtis. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, that's quite a long name. And it was actually decent. It was slow. Try not to give away too many spoilers here, but in true John Carpenter fashion, it starts out, kind of slow, and then next thing you know, the action's on, and there's plenty of gruesome sights to be had by all, I guess you could say. And there's a few parts I actually busted out laughing in the theater, and I think some people around me looked at me and were questioning my sanity level, I guess you would say. But they were relatively funny. I mean, it was a dark humor type of thing, but it was good. And we're up here, and it's 15th of October, and we're getting closer to my favorite holiday of the year, which is Halloween. So
that's everyone's favorite holiday nowadays.
You know what? I think so. And I was thinking about it because a gentleman, he was a old co-worker, and he's a huge Friday the 13th fan. I mean, this guy can tell you all kinds of stuff about that you probably never would know, but he knows it. And so we went and checked that out last night, and it was kind of funny because we both asked ourselves after the movie was over, and we're talking, and he says, do you really think it's over? And I said, well, let's look at it this way. John Carpenter said that he had retired and he was done, and we saw Rob Zombie take over and start making some of the movies. And then I said he came out of retirement for that. I said, I don't know. You think John Carpenter's done making money yet, or you think he's going to
he'll find an excuse to come back. I mean, I'm not much of a horror fan, so I haven't even seen the original Halloween. I saw enough of the Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger's to go, Halloween movies, they're more like, how many different ways can we come up with a creative way of killing the teenager for doing something stupid? About the only horror movies that I sort of kind of liked was the Saw series, because at least the Saw series had an actual plot other than, let's have the teenagers run away from Mad Killer, kind of thing. But other than that, yeah, I haven't seen the movie. So this is now the Artichoke Dip Show. Until
I got held in saying they need to just pretend this movie didn't exist. It was bad. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think if you look at it for the franchise that the man created, and I mean, let's just look at American culture and Halloween as it is. Look at how embedded Halloween, is in today in our holiday.
Exactly.
With everything. It's so I thought it was pretty decent. I mean, compared to his previous works, but you got to remember the political climate we live in today. Would the original Halloween movie even be allowed to be released?
Most of the movies that we grew up on couldn't get released today. Period.
Right.
Most of them. I usually don't like diving into these type of subjects. Let's just take the race war that's going on. Anyone who grew up in the 70s, we grew up on Sanford and Son, the Jeffersons, Archie
Yeah.
Bunker, and those were the three biggest races on TV. But anybody of any race could sit next to each other, watch that TV show, and not get offended. Nowadays, if you were to put that on TV, everyone's head would just go.
It says about Halloween ends. Sorry.
Sorry if he wasn't clear. Yeah, okay.
Wasn't clear.
Not a big fan of horror movies. On the other hand, I love zombies and skeleton warriors and fantasy horror. Oh yeah, I've killed my fair share of zombies and skeletons.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both. I do like horror movies. For my wife to get me to watch a movie with her is almost like getting an act of Congress, because I just can't get into romantic comedy stuff like that. They just, really just bore me. They don't motivate me whatsoever.
I'm sorry, dear.
But yeah, that's it's quite an interesting week. I have to say, man, with everything going on. You know what else is interesting, Don? I heard about, and I'm trying to remember the game system. And of course, this was in the morning when I watched this, and the gentleman does a lot of reviews of Kickstarter board games. And he was talking about this game that was huge crowdfunding, and the people had, as they worded it, this exclusive release. They were going to get it before everybody else, and then they had found out that wasn't the case. As a matter of fact, it was turned out to retail first, and the price was cheaper than what they paid to get the exclusives for the original run. And now these people are feeling extremely disfranchised, I guess you would say, and betrayed almost. I'm kind of like,
I would be too.
Well, that gets back to, buyer beware,
Yep. I mean, I've only done 2 Kickstarters my entire time. One went through fine, perfect, no problem. Product came on time. Product was good, whole 9 yards. The second one, I should have got my product over a month ago, and apparently the company is experiencing financial problems, and chances of that Kickstarter coming to fruition is almost zero. And I just got the book. That's not counting all the other stuff, all the stretch goals and the miniatures and everything else. All I wanted was the book. And luckily I got my PDF, so maybe one day I'll go print my PDF out. But it's like, dude, I paid for the book. I want your hardback book, not, a PDF.
Sure.
I'm gonna have to pay again to have someone, print it out and bind it and all that good stuff.
Well, a good example is the One Ring. I didn't back that on Kickstarter. As a matter of fact, I got my copy before the Kickstarters got their copy, and I bought my copy at the Motor City Comic-Con. And the gentleman running the booth told me, he's like, yeah, this stuff's already turned out to retail. He says, we just got a sweet little deal with the publisher that we were allowed to set up a booth and start selling before the release date is an early release. So I was kind of like, wow. I was like, man, that's that. I don't know how to take that. I was thinking, wow, I didn't even back this thing on Kickstarter. I have it before the Kickstarters have it. They already paid their money. They're waiting for this to be released. And here I go to a Comic-Con and buy it at an early pre-release and get everything. And I'm rolling up a character before they're even getting their packages in the mail. So I'm like, how does, oh, I don't know. I guess we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Yep. Flame of Udin says, yeah, I love Kickstarter stuff, but there are scams, poorly handled rollouts. There are also games that are now hard to find or very expensive to find on eBay that were available for less. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing it's the way that they lure you in, right? So if you do the Kickstarter and you get the stretch goal, you're going to get all this content that's going to be exclusive. You'll never find it anywhere else. And here's my problem with that. So you're essentially, if you buy what they call the core, you're not really getting the core system of the game. You're getting a small portion of the game, and the rest of the game is divvied out in these smaller expansions, right? But then you can only get them on Kickstarter. And like he's saying, if you want to find a copy of it, then you have to go on eBay or something, or just pay a ridiculous amount of money. And to me, it seems like it's actually hurting gaming more than it's helping.
Yeah, it's the way they use Kickstarter. I mean, Kickstarter is supposed to be designed for the little guy to get out there so he can get his product out there. And then hopefully once he gets it all funded and the Kickstarter people get their stuff, it should eventually wind up on a retail shelf somewhere so that as non-Kickstarter people can go, oh yeah, I want that. But no, they just do it Kickstarter exclusive. It's a money-making thing. They make their money and then they move on to the next project. And then the person who bought it is like, oh, this stuff's exclusive. I don't pay for it. I don't want to play it anymore. I paid $200 for it. Let me throw it up on eBay for $400. Someone sooner or later is going to want it and want to buy it.
But here's something interesting about that. So if you're paying attention to the current global issues that we're having, financial woes that's affecting the globe all over, despite what they're talking about with, this is the actions of Putin. Really, if you look at where this all started is the fall of Evergrande over in China, which was a huge, huge corporation. And the financial effects, the ripple effects from that, we're just now starting to feel. But as a result, Kickstarter is starting to complain, hey, where's all our record money? Where is everybody? Why aren't you spending your money? And one of those companies that's being adversely affected by that is Simon. And if you're not familiar with Simon, one of their flagship games is Zombicide. That was just absolutely, I'm going to say there was gaming before Zombicide than gaming after. And gaming before Zombicide was where I think, my content really reached a lot of people. And that was talking about solitaire gaming and how to modify stuff. And then Zombicide comes out, and it's this complete board game that can be played solo cooperatively. And it really broke down a lot of barriers. But here's the thing. They kind of got greedy. And now as a result, they're feeling that pinch in their pocketbooks. And yesterday, I just ordered an expansion for Zombicide. $20. $20 with the minis, with everything, more tiles. And they're desperately just trying to make money wherever they can. And I was like, holy crap. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. A full box set of Zombicide for $20, which is probably closer to realistically of what the actual retail cost should be. But unfortunately, what we've seen over the years, I mean, some of these games out here, I don't know how you feel about this, Don, but you look at them and they show you all these beautiful miniatures and, the game plays this and you have guaranteed this many hours of playtime and blah, 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 with the price of only $600. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can think of what I could spend $600 on.
Exactly.
That's just not.
I mean, it's just one thing I noticed too. Plus, you better own a big house because a lot of those games take up a lot of real estate. I mean, yes. I don't want to buy the game just because it would take up too much space. But like Dungeon Crusade, have you seen the videos on that? The guy has a table about the size of a pool table, and literally there's not a square inch of that table not used. It's got a board or cards or something on there. It's like, dude. It would take me an hour to put that up or set that up, another hour to take it down. By then I wouldn't want to play it.
And it's funny you mentioned that because that was when Gloomhaven came out, one of the issues a lot of people had, and one of the main complaints about Gloomhaven was setup and teardown time, how long it took to set it up, to get the scenarios going. And then when you played it compared to tearing it down and setting up the next scenario, which, a lot of it had to do with how you organized it, and then of course, that goes into something completely different, where if you look at the organizers they sell, they're ridiculously overpriced, literally for laser cut balsa wood, which if some of you out there don't know what balsa wood is, when I was a kid, you used to go to the hardware store and buy these balsa wood airplanes you would put together, and it had a rubber band with a propeller. You would wind up and you'd throw it. And, it'd be fun for the first, 4 or 5 times until they hit the pavement enough, and you'd figure out just how
brittle it is.
Balsa wood really is. Yeah.
All right, well, let's zoom over and take a look at some of these comments here. Working today on my own homebrew game system that combines D100 Dungeon, a boss countdown system for dungeon levels, my own combat system, and lots of random tables to generate enemies in dungeons. And that comes from Flame of Udin. Dude, you need to start a YouTube channel and start showing people that kind of stuff.
Great show. I watch both of your channels and have been soloing for 4 years now. Both great motivation when I get into a can't be
bothered mood. Okay, when I get into a can't be bothered mood. Yeah, I'm like that too. Just don't bother me. Leave me alone. I'm playing my game. I'm shutting out the outside world.
Yeah. That's, and the whole thing about gaming is that's where, like I've said before, for everybody's different. For me, it's music. I love music. So I have music tracks that I'll play ambient that help me really get into that mindset of gaming. And I can agree. When I get there and I'm, really having a good game session, I don't want to be bothered.
Exactly. Same here.
I mean, but life does happen.
Yep, life happens. That's for sure.
And, like I told you about that power transformer for my wife's computer when I was gaming, what happened there, which started down the whole road of replacing floors in the house. Because you can't stop at one.
Nope.
So, yeah, I totally agree, Neil. I know what you mean. Now, getting back to the first comment here, Flames of Udin, it seems like the better Kickstarter games eventually get a reprinting that is a safer point of entry for most gamers. By then, the game is vetted by some players and channels and, more. Yeah, exactly. That's...
I think a perfect example of that would probably be Dungeon Universalis. Because when Dungeon Universalis came out, I mean, it was a kind of a mixed bag. A lot of people loved it. It had a lot of good content, but other people were like, oh, it's too complicated. And I think there was problems with the way the rule book was written. Things got lost in the translation. But once enough people were able to play the game, figure it out, there's a couple of YouTube channels that threw playthroughs up on YouTube and were able to correspond back and forth to the publisher. Yeah, they were able to fix those little things. And now they have another Kickstarter. And I believe now they have their third Kickstarter on the game where they really, fixed everything. So yeah, Dungeon Universalis probably fits that bag.
But I mean,
I'm sure there's more out there.
And the thing that I was thinking about this the other night, and I was, like I do a lot, I will go and browse Amazon just to see, as we get closer to the holiday season, what's going on sale, stuff like that. Do I really, really want to get into this game system, or what are the reviews saying about it and everything else? And I had noticed the Hasbro Pulse, which has been out there, which for a lot of you that crowdfunded the Hero Quest board game, the reboot of that is
Hero Quest or Heroscape?
Well, they're both. Heroscape is coming out too. They're getting re-released Heroscape, but Hero Quest is already out there. And as I was looking through it, and it was kind of like, okay, I can see how do I put this? The way that they are doing their catalog, and I think a lot of people criticized them at first, but it made sense. It was like, okay, they're coming out with these different board games and expansions, but instead of going out on a limb and releasing them, hoping that the vast majority of people out there in retail are going to want to engage in it and buy it, now what they're doing is saying, hey, here's a game that we're going to come out with. We're going to do a limited run. We're going to sell it here to see how it goes. And if you'd like to back it, you can. And I was kind of like, this is actually might be a good thing that's going to work to our benefit, for the fact that a lot of games that maybe we would like to see, miniature type of games or RPGs, so on and so forth, that typically would never be released because it wouldn't draw a large audience, but more directed towards a smaller audience, maybe in our futures and able, to be easily get your hands on. But getting back to the last comment, the only bad thing is you're going to get this limited run that was only from the manufacturer, and once it's done, then you're looking at extremely highly inflated prices of what collectors want.
And it's not like you can research it. I mean, you have no choice. The only thing you have to go off of is either the Kickstarter or the crowdfunding page. And when you get the game, it's like, oh, this game is junk. You're risking it, that risk versus reward type thing. Because sometimes, you might get a good game, but usually you get the game, you play it once or twice, you say, oh, this game sucks, and then winds up sitting on your shelf.
Okay, so I got a comment here from one. What tools do you use on the go for a minimalist, impromptu solo session? Cards, dice, a simple D6.
I happen to have answers nearby.
Go ahead. You can start, because I think we both.
We're both probably going to say the same things.
Yeah.
I mean, those right there are the 4 best emulators I can think of right off the top of my head. Mythic, everyone knows Mythic. Most people know the Game Master's Assistance cards. Mythic's younger, misunderstood brother, the Adventure Crafter, and Ironsworn. Oh, wait, you also can add Scarlet Heroes. But as far as for me, for simple impromptu solo session, it's usually either Mythic or the Adventure Crafter, and I'm playing the Cipher system. Rob, your turn.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. The Adventure Crafter is great. As a matter of fact, a mutual friend of ours introduced me to that. He was just kind of like, hey, you need to check this out. And he was right. It's great. I keep it up right here on my table all the time. That is a great one. But realistically, when it gets back to it, impromptu, this is right here. 10-sided die. I mean, there is so much you can do with that. And one of the things that I really stress, especially as he's getting back to an impromptu solo sessions, I like to use dice and really detail a randomized table made by myself for that particular RPG system that makes sense. And of course, I use a lot of other things too. As I showed random tables, as you know, I'm a huge fan of randomized tables. So I have a lot of tools in my arsenal, as well as Don does, and those just come from over the years of gaming, and what you find that works best for you, what you like. That's the whole thing. There's a lot out there.
And as we discussed earlier, there's probably too much out there now. It used to be, when I first started my channel, you and Geek Gamers were the only ones out there with a solo channel. And now I think I'm subscribed to over 50 people that just do something solo related, whether it's a board game or RPG or something. It's more prevalent out there. And there's so many tools. I introduced you, and I think I mentioned a couple times, just go to Drive-Thru-RPG, type in parts per million.
Yeah.
And how many emulators does that guy have?
Quite
a ton.
Yeah. And it's, so, I mean, that's that could be a whole show unto itself right there, Don.
Yep.
Which you can use. Basically, the best answer I can give you for that number one is, find a system that works best for you, that really helps you keep engaged with the game, and stick with it.
Yep. It's your game. The way my expression is, if you're having fun, you're doing it right. So whatever works for you. Just because I say I like Mythic, don't mean go run out and buy Mythic. You may not like Mythic. Go do some research first. Go watch Rob or my channel or somebody else who used Mythic and see if it fits your bill. If it don't, toss it to the side and find something else. You're bound to find something out there.
Neil Thompson, do you know of a dungeon generator using standard playing cards?
I know of one right off the top of my head, but it's kind of hard to get a hold of. But I'm sure you can make your own dungeon chart. It's not that hard. But dungeon generator I know of comes with Wiley Games game, the Melee and Magic, and it's based on his Fistful of Lead series. But I'm sure you can find a dungeon generator online that uses playing cards, or there's a list, I'm sure, on Drive-Thru RPG somewhere. If not, just make up your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really the best pre-made I've seen so far, I mean, you talked about this, is the Dungeon Saga series that came out, which is a miniature dungeon crawling board game.
Yep.
And part of their, it was a set they put out just for solitaire play. And it had a set of cards that had randomized dungeon layouts. And as you drew the card and set it down at that point, it would change the dungeon and encounters and so on and so forth. So it really, it's a playing card fashion as to what he's saying. But as far as like you said, a table, yeah.
It'd be best just to make your own. I know that in the Wiley Games version, the jacks, queens, and kings were rooms. I think the 10s were also rooms, and the 9s through 2s were just corridors, and he just altered it. The 2 went straight and turned this way, and the 3 went straight and turned that way, and the 4 was a cross intersection. Just make up your own. It'd be a whole lot easier to do it that way than trying to buy one. Unless you really want to buy one, then go buy Wiley Games. I think it was in his 3rd book. I got the exclusive hardback, and you can't get that no more, I don't think. But I think he broke it down into 3 books. I think the 3rd book is what had the dungeon generator. But you'd be a whole lot better off just making your own.
So Flames of Udin, random tables are great. Some are better than others. My favorite tables are the ones I make by stealing all the good ideas from tables I find in books. Short setup, just combine some good tables. Exactly what I'm getting back to. Make your own specialized tables focused towards the game setting that you are playing. And yeah, absolutely. I do the same thing as well. To what point is it to have a library of books and everything and not utilize that information to your advantage? That's the whole reason why you do that. So absolutely. Flames of Udin. Yeah.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I got 2 other things for you. A gentleman, I think his YouTube channel is Swords in Solitude. He made his own random table, and I did a video on it a little while back. And those were his favorite tables that he put together, and he just happened to throw up on Drive-Thru. In the same tone of voice, number 2, I'm looking at a RPG system that's in beta. And then I just happened, as I was reading that material, glance up and see my the Wrath of Ashardalon and the Castle Ravenloft board games. And I'm like, I can see this being put on those miniature squares and looking at those cards. I can take those cards and take ideas from the Perilous Wilds book. I don't know if you're familiar with Perilous Wilds, but you got the Discovery and the Dangers. I was going to make my own chart for that game based on what I saw in Castle Ravenloft and in the Wrath of Ashardalon game, so I can go back and reutilize that gaming material that's just sitting in the box collecting dust. Because I know the Dungeon Saga tiles are good, but I really like those tiles because they interlock together. When you bump the table with the Dungeon Saga tile, sometimes they get disheveled. At least when you bump the table with the D&D ones, they don't get broken up unless you really messed up. In which case, yeah, you can fix it. But those tiles are really, really good to play on. I like those tiles.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Those sets are just for what you pay for them and everything you get out of them is really, well worth.
Even if you don't play the game, just get them for the tiles and the miniatures alone. I think they have like 40 some odd miniatures in each box, and the game itself is $40, $50. So you're like $1.25 a miniature. You're not going to find that deal anywhere else unless you go to 15 mil.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Very true. Let's see. Do we have any more questions here? It
Well,
looks like
actually, I got some from the Facebook group. Oh, wait, we
oh,
got another one. One jumped in.
what's the best way to organize scenes as you progress through your solo story session? Best way to organize your scenes. Well, I would think the best way to how I like to do it is look at it as a chapter. So each scene is a particular chapter unto itself. When I do a solo RPG, I'm not sitting and like writing a constant like a novel. I don't do that. I play through it, take the cliff notes, really the
Yeah, I do the same thing.
pertinent to the story, and at the end of my game session, make a more edited, cohesive note for myself. So when I go back, I'm not completely confused as to what's going on, and write that down in my little journal like this. And then what
Yeah,
I
just
will
write it down on a journal, scene by scene. Now, if you're one of those people that like to write a novel, feel free to write a novel. But I'm like Rob. I just write down the cliff notes, bullet points. I met this NPC. This is the action that's taking place in this town, or this is the mystery that's behind the city, or whatever the case. Just little cliff notes, and then that's it for that page. Next page, next scene.
a really good resource to help you with this and help your scenes move along and keep your NPCs interesting and keep things moving in a more linear fashion, I'll say, is this right here, the Adventure Crafter. It really is. If you're a solo RPGist, um, it's a good resource to pull on because it's going to give you a lot of good ideas and how they lay it out to help you with your solo RPG sessions. I have to admit, shout out to Lance out there, even though he doesn't like me mentioning his name. I have to admit, he was right. That's a great resource to have.
Yes, it is. I mean, this is usually easier to get my hands onto than my universal NPC emulator, Une. I can make an NPC in 20 seconds right now. Draw two identities, a mediator, rogue, and draw two descriptors. I'm getting a lot of draw two descriptors. I got to draw more descriptors there, Rob. Crazy, exotic, a rogue mediator that's crazy and exotic. There you go. We built ourselves an NPC. Now take whatever RPG you're playing and convert that. Rogue mediator. He's probably a rogue with a high charisma. Exotic. He probably dresses weird or speaks weird. Oh wait, he is weird because he's crazy. We've already got the basics for an NPC already, just off 4 cards.
Okay, our next comment here is from Solofera RPG. Hello, Don and Rob. Hello.
Well, hello.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show.
Flame of Udin. He's got another one. What are your favorite dice combat systems? Too fiddly versus too simple, etc. I don't.
I have an answer, but I'll let you go first.
It really depends on type of gaming I want to do. D20 is an excellent system. A lot of my RPGs are powered by a D20 system, but as of recently, I have found a lot of really great systems, particularly from Free League Publishing, that are powered by a D6 system. It really, really helps you understand how versatile a D6 system can actually be. And D100 systems, I mean, they're great. They are excellent systems, lots of variability that can go into them. But do I have a favorite one that I would think is too simple? I wouldn't say the dice system is too simple. I would say maybe the game system. Let's just take an example of 4 Against Darkness versus 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, right? 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is far more sophisticated of an RPG system than 4 Against Darkness. Now, one is a D20 system, one is a D6 system. You could perceive that the D20 system is just far more superior, but realistically, it's the game system, and the dice are nothing more than tools for that system. So I hope that. Go ahead, Don.
Now hold on. I'm going to answer that question, and this is where one of those points where we can agree to disagree, because playing D&D for mostly 30 some odd years, yes, I know the D20 is out there, and I know a lot of people like it. I, on the other hand, have a tendency to avoid most D20 systems. I prefer what you would call multi-dice systems, something where you roll 2d6 or 3d6 and add them up, and that follows the bell curve. Perfect example for a D20 system that for most people didn't work out well was probably Frostgrave, because Frostgrave uses that D20 system, and combat can be kind of swingy. One moment you're doing a crit, the next round you're doing a critical fumble. It gets kind of swingy. At least with the bell curve, the crits are really crits and the fumbles are really fumbles.
Okay, here is a game I just want to use an example of that's all D6. This is called Shadows of Malice, and if you've never heard of it, it's a classic RPG style, I guess you could say, hex crawl game where you draw cards and you make a quick character persona. There's no miniatures or anything involved. The whole game is powered by D6. But what really opened up my eyes, this game system will show you exactly just how versatile a D6 is, how it can be broken down. And literally, this game is an excellent game. You would think you got a D6 and you would be limited to modifiers and everything like that. And absolutely not. When you get into some of the combats and other goodies you're going to find in here, items and so on and so forth, you would just be astounded. And at the end of the day, it's just regular D6 system. So as my example, I think it's more of the game system, not the dice mechanic behind it. The dice are just the tools there to help.
Right, dice are just tools. But I mean, under some circumstances, though, a D20 system does have a tendency to be really, really swingy. And some people really like that swinginess, and then there are other people that don't. So, like I said, it's up to you. Whatever your favorite system is, do it. And if you can't find your favorite system, be like that other guy and create your own.
Absolutely. So, okay, we got 3 new comments here, and we're gonna go through these real quick. Number 1, thank you again. You're very welcome. Thanks for watching, and thanks for the questions.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Neil Thompson, have you looked at Easy D6 by DM Scotty? I love the ease of the magic system, and I feel it works great solo. I have not. I know who DM Scotty is. Are you familiar with DM Scotty at all?
I'm familiar with DM Scotty, and I'm somewhat familiar with the Easy D6 system. I don't own it, but I did watch one of the people I'm subscribed to on YouTube did a review on it. And although the system is not for me, I can see for some people that being a really good system to start with, because literally it is Easy D6. All you need is 2 operational brain cells, and you should be able to figure it out. So yeah, from what I saw of the review, that would be one of those games. If I was looking for an easy game to play solo, that would be on my list.
All right, and then number 1, he has another question here. This is wonderful live question and answer. Could this be a monthly event? Well,
it could.
Yeah,
it all depends on our schedules and you guys.
Yeah, I mean, me and Don, we had talked about this, and we didn't know how would everybody respond to it. Is it worth the time of us taking away our Saturday afternoons and to do the show, and how will people like it? And if people like it, more than interested to do more like this. Absolutely.
Exactly. Love to. Because we're talking about the RPG world, there's literally hundreds of subjects. Now we have to take those hundreds of subjects and try to break it down into solo, and you can get Rob's point of view and my point of view, and maybe come up with your own point of view. Because as we just proved with the dice question, me and Rob get along, but we don't have to agree on every little thing. If he says D20 system's his favorite system, who am I to stop him? I'm not the internet police. And if Rob's not going to be coming knocking on my door, Donald, no 2D6 systems for you.
Right. Absolutely not. I mean, I'm not opposed to any dice system. I love any type of game that involves miniatures and dice, and where my imagination can be unleashed. I'm there. But I do like systems that have a little bit more of a robust, I'll say, mechanic system built to it to give you more options, to be able to, how do I put this? Getting back to what you're saying about games that are too overly simplified, even though they're a great place for some people to start out as a gamer, as you go on and you mature as a gamer, and you want more sophistication, you want more story detail, you want more interesting NPCs into your world, and so on and so forth. So you want to look for some different systems out there that will be able to deliver on that. And sometimes too simple, it just doesn't engage my imagination.
Exactly. Yeah, I know you've done some videos on the subject, and there's probably 100 other YouTubers who did For Against Darkness. Me personally, I'm not a For Against Darkness fan. To me, if the system was way too simple, and two, it's a dungeon crawl. Well, I can just grab a random RPG set and make a dungeon crawl out of it. So that's just me. But I can see where someone brand spanking new who's never played an RPG before, yeah, go start with For Against Darkness, get your feet wet, and if you like it, then you can progress up to a different system.
Absolutely. So we got a couple new comments in here. Actually, we got Flame of Udin. He's just dominating it. But
Yeah,
Fred,
he is.
this people likes it, but it's your time. Yeah, well, that's absolutely true. You're absolutely right. But what we're getting at, how do people like it? How do they, if nobody's going to engage or watch with it, then
Exactly.
what's the point? But I think it's, I think me and Don both have, we enjoy making the videos. We enjoy conversation, talking about pulp culture. So I would think, yeah, there would be more. How do you feel about that, Don?
Works for me. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't want to say we're the number one experts, but I guess when people think solo RPG, one of our names is one of the first things that come to their mind. So yeah, we can at least give them a kick in the butt and get them in the right direction. Sooner or later, they'll figure it out, just like we had to.
So Flames of Udin, Frostgrave is solid. I am experimenting close to that. D10 skill systems roll under your skill number to succeed. Combat is a D6 with exploding dice. Damage modified by contested D10 fight skill roll. Okay, so Frostgrave. I do have the original core rule book that I had picked up of that. And they also did through Modius, which is Rangers of Shadow Deep, which is another excellent game. Are you familiar with any of those, Don?
Yes, I have most of the first edition Frostgrave stuff, and I believe I have the PDF for Rangers of Shadow Deep.
So they're excellent systems. Particularly Rangers of Shadow Deep is detailed more so towards, for those of you out there watching that may not know what these systems are. So you got Rangers of Shadow Deep that is detailed towards the solo player in mind, where it gives you scenarios, it gives you an outline, and utilizing a set of playing cards as you draw them. Basically, it keeps making each turn a little bit more difficult, spawning more miniatures out on the board, so on and so forth. And you have certain objectives you have to reach. So as a solitaire play, it's excellent. It's very engaging. Frostgrave, on the other hand, is designed more so with the mindset that you're going to be sitting down at the table playing a miniature game with other players. Not that you cannot make it for a solitaire experience, because absolutely you can. But yeah, absolutely. The D10 skill system roll under your skill number for succeed. I do like that. What we've seen with a lot more modern games is try to roll high. You get back to, if you roll low is bad, rolling high is good. I like to roll at or below skills because it does offer a lot more, how do you put this, uncertain outcome to how things are really going to go. So as a gamer, it kind of takes you out of your comfort zone to a certain extent. But both are excellent games. All right, let's move on to the next comment here. Okay, number 1 asks again, Rob, can you elaborate on the simple D10, D percentage mechanics you like? Don, can you contrast the D10, D percentage with your thoughts on the 2D6 bell curves? Okay, so can you elaborate on a simple D10 percentage mechanics you like? Okay, D10 simple percentage mechanics, and I said this in a lot of my videos for solo play. So let's take baseline of a D100, which is going to be a 50%, and modifying that depending on the situation and or question, right? So let's use a dungeon crawl as an example. Your characters walk down a corridor and up to a door. They don't know what's beyond it. So you could have a few different things you do. You could just kick the door down and hope you can, be able to take down whatever's in the room. Or you could take the more intelligent approach, which would be, hey, why don't we listen and see if we can hear anything and take a good look at the door to make sure it's not trapped. So then at that point, I would start adding to that. Okay, so 50% is my baseline. So let's say it's the thief that's looking. Okay, well, he's a thief. He's going to have skills. So I'm going to add 10% to that. And as I go through asking myself these questions, I'm going to tally up my final score. So let's say my final score is, we'll say from the baseline, 70%, we'll just say. I'm going to roll the D100. And if I roll at or below, I succeed. If I roll above, I have failed. So that's how I like to use it. And I'm turning it over to you, Don.
All right. Well, here's where we get to agree to disagree yet again. I have at least 4 RPG systems that I can possibly go grab that are percentile based. And the problem I had with most of the percentile systems, because of the way the roll low mechanic worked, combat had a tendency to kind of drag out. Let's take, for an example, I've never seen the game except on YouTube, but I know you own RuneQuest. I know you've done some videos on RuneQuest. Let's take your dude who has a 50% fighting skill and my dude who has roughly, because we're about the same level or close to it, I have roughly a 50%, chance to dodge. Well, once out of every 2 rolls, you're going to hit me. And once out of every 2 rolls where you hit me, I'm going to dodge. So literally, it'll take 4 rounds of combat on average for you to hit me 1 time. And depending on how the hit point to damage ratio with the weapons is, it's like, okay, round 17. Oh, Rob, okay, your fighter's swinging at me. Okay, I'm done. That was my problem with most percentile systems. Now, I do have one percentile system that fixed that problem. I call it the Price is Right system. It's he who rolls the highest without going over their respective percentages. So in that same combat, Rob's got a dude around 50%, and I've got a dude around 50%. He rolls his percentiles, I roll mine. As long as we both roll under the 50%, there's something going on. If we both roll over 50%, well, Rob missed me and my dodge don't count. But if I roll a 49 and Rob rolls a 48, yes, he made his roll, but my roll was 1 point higher. I successfully dodged. 1 roll takes care of the whole problem. That was my only big problems with most percentile systems. But then again, that's me. Everybody's mileage will vary.
Okay, so let's take a look here. So,
well, actually, I have to go answer part 2. My thoughts on the 2d6 bell curves. I just like bell curves because bell curves tend to keep you within your skill level per se. You're rolling 2d6, average roll is 7. this game I was talking about on Kickstarter that's got delayed, it's a 2d6 system. Your average roll to succeed is supposed to be a 10. The average you roll on a 2d6 is 7, and the average ability score is 3. So usually 50% of the time, I'm going to succeed on whatever it is I'm doing. And as my ability score goes up, okay, there's more of that chance of me succeeding on the simple roll of 10. That's why I like bell curves, because mathematically it works out that I'm going to be somewhere in that gap, as opposed to the D20s where I'm over here. I roll a 21 round and I'm going to critically kill Robert's character. But then the next round I roll a 1 and now Rob's critically killing me. I know for some people, they like that. They like that swinginess. To me, I like to keep it more, here's your skill level, here's this guy's skill level. Let's try to keep it even and see, now at this point, it isn't a matter of what we roll, especially if it's a well-written game. Now it comes down to the tactics and the skill of the player. That's just me.
So the next question is from Shields. I tend to get fatigued with solo dungeon crawls. Do you have any suggestions to improve solo RPG dungeon crawling? Okay, so the way I'm going to approach this first is, the first thing is the way you have to look at it. Look at how the market is flooded with dungeon crawlers. There are so many different dungeon crawlers that are coming out, and at the end of the day, they're just a dungeon crawler. That's all it is. So a lot of that fatigue you are feeling has to do with that. The other thing I want to point out, a lot of RPG systems that are just built solely around dungeon crawling, they're kind of restrictive because that's it. So sometimes what can really help that is go out of your comfort zone. Try to find different RPG systems that can focus on open-ended world RPGs where you're not limited to just dungeon crawling. But as far as spicing up, we'll say just dungeon crawling as in general, well, really, you only have a couple of decisions to go with here. So you can make more interesting traps. You can add more interesting encounters into it, adding different types of, I'm going to say, puzzle type of traps, if you will, having to solve whether it's a mystery or something like that. A lot of people will utilize and put into their games. It's unfortunate. That's the thing about a dungeon crawl, is at the end of the day, it's a dungeon crawl. How do you
just first find a system that you like? One, find that happy medium between rules crunch and too simple. Again, I'll pick on Dungeon Universalis because I've seen one guy play through, 20 different missions or whatever. He loves the game, but every video he's complaining that, oh man, I forgot this rule, or I forgot this rule. Oh man, this game is complicated. Oh, I forgot this. And I'm like, dude, why are you playing Dungeon Universalis? Go find something else, or take that concept and make it your own. I mean, you're playing solo anyway. If the rule don't make sense or you don't like the rule, throw it out. Again, the internet police aren't going to show up on your front door and tell you you're doing it wrong.
Okay, so the next question we got is from Neil Tom. He says, I love Savage Worlds as the combat is fast and the playing card initiative makes things unpredictable. Okay, I can see that. Savage Worlds, I am familiar with that. I did play that before. Me personally, it's not a system I personally enjoy, but that's the nice thing about solo RPG is you find a system, just like what Don was saying, that works the best for you, because that's the best thing of it. But if Savage Worlds is, working out well for you, Neil, stick with it, man. Elaborate and keep going with it.
Yeah, I'm not much of a Savage Worlds guy either, but I mean, there are games out there similar to Savage Worlds that I look at where your ability scores aren't a number. Your ability scores are a die roll, a die number. I have seen a couple other games like that that are very similar to Savage Worlds. But as for Savage Worlds itself, I'm not in that ballpark. But again, that's just me.
I think a lot of people like it for the fact of the exploding D4 So if you roll a 4, you keep
Yeah,
rolling.
all the dice explode in that game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's familiar to like me and you talked about the RPG game called man. Now I'm trying to remember the name of that. Oh, here it is. Let me just grab the book. Nibiru. You know, cool idea for the game system, cool layout. The same kind of premise with D4s, but playing an RPG where my character starts out with amnesia and doesn't know who the hell my character is, and then has to find out over a series of many game sessions. Yeah.
Well, the only problem I have with the that system, the explosive die part of it anyway, the explosive die system is great as long as it's your character that's rolling the explosive die. But as soon as the bad guy rolls the explosive die, you're done.
Yeah.
I played Savage World solo, and I had a brand spanking new character, and I just wanted to test out the system. I wasn't even doing a story. I just threw a random goblin in front of me and was going to fight it. The goblin rolled his maximum like 3 times in a row, which was enough to kill me. And then when I look at the rules about the benefits, where you can, pay a benny to re-roll or whatever, I went through all 3 of my bennies because I kept rolling ones. It's like this goblin literally just one-shotted me right out the gate, all because of that explosive die system. Yeah, it works great when you do it. It sucks when the monster does it.
Absolutely. Okay, Flame of Odin. Sorry, Flames of Odin. At John T, if you are playing solo, can you take advantage of that? No one sees you re-roll that last die. Okay, well, here's the thing when it comes to solitaire play. You have to be 100% fair to yourself. You're your own rules lawyer. If you keep re-rolling die to make everything go into your, we'll say,
if you keep rolling the dice to go into your favor, then you're really not playing a game. You're making a story, because if you don't like the results, you're just going to keep rolling until you get the results you like, and then you're really not playing a game. You're just creating your own little story.
So, and I mean, that takes the fun of it, because that's the whole thing about playing a game with dice, is everything, boils down to the luck of the die. It's either going to help or burn you. And, that's the thing about it. You have to take the good with the bad.
You go with the bad. Yep.
Okay. Steve Thomas says, "Hi, Rob. How you doing, Steve? I'm great you're with us, and welcome."
Okay. Actually, I think you skipped one.
I did?
What's your favorite solo game tool that you've added to your DM toolkit when you DM for a gaming group?
What is
I
your
think
favorite?
we've already answered those.
Yeah, you know what? I don't really play in any groups. I don't play in any RPG groups, so can't really elaborate on that one.
Well, I mean, the closest thing I've been in a group for a while is one. I'm playing a game play by post, and I'm not DM, so I don't have to worry about that. The only other time I'm in a group setting now is if I mention the solo RPG aspect to somebody and they look at me like, "Huh, what are you talking about?" Well, let me show you. You play the player, I'll play the DM, but I'm not really being a DM. This and this and this is being the DM. And I'm just saying, now you saw what I did. Go buy your own cards or your own books, and you could do the same thing.
Yeah,
That's about the closest thing to a group I've been in.
Absolutely. So moving on to John T. Thanks, Flame. I got another no. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I scanned back. Apparently, one of them asked the other a question, or maybe they were asking us a question. Oh, wait, yeah, here it is. A problem I hope you can help with is if you have an open-ended question, such as, what is your relationship with the woman? Is she your daughter? And you get a no on a D6, what should you do next? Oh, she's not your daughter. Move on.
Right.
I don't know. That question really is kind of hard to answer without the rest of the context. I don't know what you're talking about there, but she's not your daughter. So
Okay, so Flames of Uden says, John T, see if she has a boyfriend. Okay, so let's move on from here. So Flames of Uden again, and wait a minute, I think I got
Well, I think you skipped one. Well, actually, you skipped one, and he is one. Do either of you have your own homebrew systems you use?
Well, that's the thing about solo. I mean, the name homebrew, I'm going to say, was coined by Wizards of the Coast and put out there. And I said, oh, it's a homebrew because you make it yourself. Well, solitaire RPGing, I mean, technically, you're making your own. It's, that it's become basically a trademarked quote through Wizards of the Coast. So, do I have a favorite? Yeah, all of them. I guess the best one.
Yeah, I mean, technically, everything we do is homebrew. Now, there have been times where I sat down and tried to make my own system, but I'm like, why? I mean, there's probably a game out there that has a similar system to this. I looked through my collection. I've got the D100 systems. I got the 3D6 roll low, the 3D6 roll high, the 2D6 roll low, the 2D6 roll high, the D20 roll high, the D20 roll low, the 2D10s, the 2D8s, the 2D, I've got every system out there. Why create my own? All I got to do is take, grab said RPG. It don't matter what RPG is. Oh, there's a 2D6 system. All right, most of these rules I like, but I don't like that one. But wait, here's another 2D6 system, and I can take this rule out of this game and incorporate it into this game, and I basically homebrewed.
Absolutely. So let me see here. Neil Thompson asked, what is your go-to RPG system if you can only
play one?
Go-to system. It changes for me. And it just depends, really what I am playing at that time. Currently, right now, my go-to system I am using is this right here, the One Ring. That I enjoy it. I enjoy the heck out of it. But, over time, I'm going to get tired of it. And I'm going to want to move on to something else. And so for me, it varies.
Same here. If you were to put a gun to my head right now and have me give you an answer, that answer would probably be the Cipher system. But like he said, after a while, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to put the Cipher system on hold and try something else. As a matter of fact, my latest experiment is a study in Japanese RPG systems, just because they do things so weird and different. It's like, okay, I'm not worried so much about the system per se. I just want to see, from the Japanese perspective, how they do things. And there's two examples right there.
So what do we have here? Next one is from number one. Let me get that up here. Thank you both. Didn't know that you didn't DM for other people. Yeah, well, that's I can't speak for Don, but I can tell you for myself. I was part of other game groups. And I always ran into one of two problems. One, clashing personalities with people at the table, game master. One game group I was part of, it was almost like slow torture, was a pulp nocturne RPG, and you never had any resolution. You never had anything to end. Anything that intrigued you that you wanted to learn more about in this world, the GM would railroad you and just take you back towards his story and what he wanted. And it just became extremely frustrating. And so, at that point, I went to be a solo RPG player and game master myself and not rely on others.
And from my point of view, I have DM'd other people before. But once I got into that solo group thing, I haven't had really, one, the need to go out and find a group for one, and two, if it does happen to happen, like the guy who introduced me to D&D, now that I moved back here with my mom, I live locally with him, I can go see him. Yeah, for him and his family, I'll DM. but I'm literally I'm walking in there with nothing in my mind. I have no pre-thought of the adventure. I'm just like, you know what? GMA, Mythic, Adventure Crafter, Iron Sworn, just grab an emulator and make it up right then and there.
Okay, and next one comes from Flame of Uden again, and I play D100 Dungeon. It is a good framework for solo play. Does require you to homebrew or do random tables for story. So when D100 Dungeon was a print, the play game, it was referred to me. I checked it out, and I tried to get into it. For me personally, it was just too randomized. And I know coming from a guy that, likes to collect randomized tables, that may sound bad, but it just felt too random to me. Some things just didn't make any sense whatsoever. And but as far as a solo framework, yeah, I mean, that's the main design of that game, is how, what it was for. A lot of people love it, and hey.
Yeah. I actually own the game myself, and I have played it. And I mean, I gave it a thorough playthrough. The guy puts together a lot of good concepts. I just didn't like the way the combat system worked. That was just me. Combat kind of dragged out again. And it's like, oh, really? And of course, like you said, the random tables were sometimes a little too random. So yeah, that was just my big issue. But I know a lot of people love D100. I know, plenty of YouTubers out there who do playthroughs. And yeah, for certain people, it's a great game. But for me, it's not for me. And apparently it's not for Rob. So hey, look, we're agreeing again, Rob.
So John T, he said, sorry for the confusion. That's no problem. Don't worry about that. I was wondering how you handle conversations and solo RPGs with NPCs. Okay, so here's the thing with solo RPG. Now, a lot of RPGs...
I'm going to let you answer. I'll be right back, Rob.
Okay, everything takes place up in your imagination. And, of course, if you are dropping an NPC in it's important to the storyline, we'll say, at that point, you're going to want to develop it and have that as almost a mainstay, I'll say. So, of course, you can elaborate more on that. But for the most part, what really helps with that is check out Scarlet Heroes. Scarlet Heroes, what it does is it goes through the NPCs and gives you reactions of how NPCs are going to react to your characters or the environment that they're in. And it really helps with that, because then you're not really having to sit and write out a huge dialogue of what plays between NPCs and characters, particularly if the NPC isn't going to be around long in your campaign. So it would be kind of a waste of time in a sense. But I hope that answers your question. When it comes to conversations between NPCs and characters, like I said, unless that NPC is vital to the storyline, really, I just go off a reactions table.
For the most part, yeah, same here. If the NPC is an important NPC, I'll have a dialogue, but it's not like I'm sitting there talking to myself. I'm just thinking. I asked the guy this, he responds this way. Dice say this. Okay, blah, blah, okay, we're done. Move on. If it's just a normal run-of-the-mill NPC that's just going to be, on screen for 30 seconds or whatever, yeah, it's just a random roll and move on.
So the next question is from one. What questions would you like answered during the live event that we haven't asked you yet?
Well, actually, I posted in the Facebook group that we'll be doing this possibly live, and if they had any questions to post. So I will go over there and grab a few questions, because I know one of our supporters, Mr. Fernandez, who's a subscriber to both our channels and both our Facebook groups and is very supportive of the work we do, has asked a couple of questions. So maybe we can tackle those. Let me find my way in there. All right. What games and emulators do you use more today? All right. What's your favorite emulator and what's your favorite? Well, I think you've already answered. Your favorite game is the One Ring. But what is your top emulator? Do you have one?
Well, currently I'm playing the One Ring, and they have their own emulator called Strider Mode, which is really okay. This is what's interesting about it. Let me start here. And it really helps with NPCs. That's why I've encouraged a lot of people, even if you don't have the One Ring, and if you can get a hold of the PDF to even look at it, because it'll help with your current solo RPG. And that is the fact that instead of looking at an NPC as just a randomized meeting or event in a game world, they take it a step further in what they call our patrons. So a patron can be your protagonist, can be the antagonist, just depending. And the cool thing is the NPC now becomes more than just an NPC. This is a vital influence that your character is going to go back to get quests, to be able to get answers for questions, particularly in the One Ring setting, to where you run across a magical item and maybe you have no idea what the magic, whether it be for the shadow or good magic, I guess you could say, there is such thing, that you could possibly take that back to the patron and the patron could help you. So, and if you take that and you apply that to any RPG system, at that point, NPCs become a more important, I'm going to say, resource for you to utilize into your games. And so that would be my favorite one right now, would be the Strider Mode.
And as for me, I alternate. It depends. When I'm reading, the rule set, depending on that rule set, what inspires me. If I see this game would work great with Mythic, well, then I'm going to use Mythic. If I look and say this game will work great with Ironsworn, well, then I'm using Ironsworn. Or if like this game, I'm going to try this game with the Adventure Crafter because, it seems like it would marry up well. It just depends on my mood, really. I mean, whatever happens to be close by, what my mood is. If I have, sometimes I'll look and like right now I see, because I've been moving all these books around, Mythic's on top of my list of emulators, and an RPG, the Japanese one I was referring to earlier, Goblin Slayer. Not once have I played Goblin Slayer using Mythic, but now just because I'm glancing at it that way, it's like, Mythic might work well with Goblin Slayer, and I can go that route and see how it works.
So the next one comes from Fred Daniel, and he says, do you usually have a specific world in mind when you solo? And do you have an all-time favorite setting? Okay.
I don't have an all-time favorite setting. I mix and match.
I can say I do, and one of my all-time favorite settings, and it's an old setting. It's still in my opinion, it's a great one. And that's the original AD&D Forgotten Realms, where it all started. And the thing I like about it, why it's one of my favorites, is the fact that it gives you these huge maps of this world. And it gives you very basic cliff notes of certain areas on the map, but for the most part, everything's left up to you to create and to be able to put in there. So it's a large framework you can work within. But as far as like favorite, that would be my favorite pre-published, I guess you would say, world. But for most part, a lot of my games, anybody who knows me will tell you that I love history. One of my favorite parts of history, of course, is medieval Europe. And so 90% of the games that I have are based on a fantasy medieval Europe type of setting. So I hope that answers your question. Don, I'll turn it over to you.
As far as for me, I don't have a favorite setting per se, but I might, steal parts of, certain settings. Like he said, Forgotten Realms. When I was playing with my third edition group, most of us played in that realm. And so I kind of have that more in my back of my mind than other worlds. So like, okay, when the dude comes up and says, I'm playing a cleric, okay, what deity? He's going to throw out a Forgotten Realms deity most time. Most of the time, the DMs were playing in the Forgotten Realms, or were at least using it as a base guide. So yeah, I mean, it's what you make of it, but I don't really have an all-time favorite setting. Like I said, I mix and match. Do I have a specific world in mind when I solo? No, not really. Sometimes the RPG itself will have its own game world, and I'll try that out. And other times I'll be like, you know what, this game system would be much better in this other world, and I'm gonna try that instead. That's just me. All right, moving back over. I'll wait till Rob comes back, but I'll answer TD Fernandez's next question. Do you use some method to create storyline when playing, or is it all up in the air? Well, storyline, I know that's a problem that a lot of people have, coming up with storylines. Here's the easiest thing that I can suggest to someone who's new. Matthew Colville on his YouTube channel, he said that the good writers borrow, great writers steal. Well, then in my case, I'm going to tell you that good RPG role players borrow, but the great RPG role players steal. And what I mean by that is just go online, go to DriveThruRPG and just look up the adventures and just read the little blurb. You don't even have to buy the module. Just read the blurb, and you have a basics for your starting point for your storyline. A lot of times, if I'm playing like a generic RPG and I just want to see how the mechanics work, I can care less, about the, storyline. I just look and I see my castle Ravenloft and go, okay, I'm gonna go find the icon of Ravenloft. I think I've done like 6 RPGs in a row where I found the icon of Ravenloft. All right, Rob, while you were gone, Rob, I started off this other question. Are you back? Can you hear me?
Yep, I am back.
Okay. Do you use some type of method to create a storyline when playing, or is it all up in the air?
So, okay, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things about a solo RPG, and I've seen a lot of people say this, they say, it's like writing a story. Well, yeah, it is. Takes a lot of elements from creative writing, and it gives you tools to help you with that. But when it comes to any solo RPG, and I've emphasized this, I have a lot of videos, is you have to have a structure. So you're going to want to have, just like you would in any type of story, beginning, middle, end, you're going to want to have a protagonist. You're going to want to have an antagonist, a force that's going to keep that story narrative moving forward and not stagnate. And of course, you're going to want to have a protagonist, somebody that's there to help your characters, whether your game setting takes place in the classic good versus evil, or if it's a mystery or what have you. Utilizing those key elements as you would for any type of writing or creative writing, and putting those. Now, I'm not telling you, unless you want to write a novel, to sit down and utilize to write a novel, but working within that framework, it's going to keep your story moving forward, and it's going to keep you engaged as well, and it's going to be more cohesive for you rather than being a series of randomized events that are just strung together that make a whole lot of sense after a while.
Yep. All right. Well, it looks like we got another question over here. Let's see. What is the most difficult thing about soloing for you? And what style of game or material or supplement do you use so much now that you don't use anymore? So what do you use before that you don't use now, and what is the most difficult thing about soloing?
Wow, where is that question? Let me see.
No, that's on. Oh, I'm getting these questions from the Facebook page.
Oh, I got you.
I see all these questions that we have in this, but I'm also posted in the Facebook group, so some people are asking questions there, so I'm bringing them in.
Oh, okay, no problem. Great. So when I first started out, when it came to randomized tables, there wasn't a lot out there. Matter of fact, there was barely any. And typically you would have to pick up an RPG system to get your hands on them. And now you have so many. Like here, this example right here. I mean, this is all randomized encounters. That's randomized. Randomized encounters as they advertise for any tabletop RPG, and that's a resource for a soloist or, as it's termed, the lazy DM. But I utilize those now. I utilize those more, and I used to make my own tables. Now, when it comes to my RPG, when I'm actually playing my RPG, I will still make a small, detailed, randomized table framework for my particular RPG, but for a large part, I utilize a lot of these because they're great, and it's a resource that wasn't available, even 10 years ago. So,
all right. Well, now I'm gonna let all the world laugh at me. Okay.
Okay.
When I first started this trip down the solo RPG route, before I came across Artichoke Dips and everybody else, when Geek Gamers YouTube channels, and I was experimenting on my own, my first ever tool was the board game called Tomb. I don't know if any of you all have heard it, but it's an old board game. It's literally a ton of cards, and in that stack of cards, you got items, both normal, mundane, and magical. You got monsters, and your party, you dip your hand into this bag and you pull out a little chit, and it's got the player character that you're going to be playing on there, part of your party members. On one side, it had the stats for the game, and on the other side, it had a little picture. That used to be my first NPC generator. I would reach into the bag, pull it out, look at the picture, and on the bottom of the picture it would say, fighter cleric or fighter mage or whatever. And I'd be like, there's my NPC. And then I'd flip it over, look at the game stats for Tomb, and then convert that to whatever RPG I was playing. So if this guy's a high-level wizard but a low-level fighter, well, then the dude I'm coming across is more higher-level magic user and a lower-level fighter. And that used to be my first NPC emulator. And then I would shuffle through the cards and flip over a random card when it came to treasure. And whatever that item was, I would just convert it to that game system. And that was my first Game Master emulator, was the board game Tomb. That's just me. And that's one tool I obviously don't use anymore, but every once in a while I see the game and I laugh at myself going, I used to do that.
But if you think about it, it was a good way. It was simple to devise a system and to put things into place for you, where like I said before, people just starting out in RPG or just getting into solitaire RPG now, they're just over inundated. There's so much out there. They're like, okay, where do I start? What do I do? I mean, so in a way, we're kind of lucky that, we did have those simple, humble beginnings.
Yep. All right, I think I've gone through all of the Facebook. I'll go check the Facebook. You check here and get the next question ready. Yep. I think I've got all of Facebook done.
So Sean Baldwin, okay, I think I skipped over some here.
Oh, you skipped over all the good stuff. Everybody's thanking us.
Yes, thank you, Artichoke and Donald. Helpful answers. You are very welcome, John T. Thank you for joining us. Number one, he seems to be quite a lot of questions here. Okay, so as a general comment, I've watched both of your channels for some time, and I have really enjoyed them. Thank you both for being a great resource on YouTube to learn how to solo RPG. I really appreciate it. You are very welcome. Thank you for
You're welcome, dude.
Here's the thing, Matt. That's what really fuels us to do this. If people aren't watching and they're not enjoying it, then there's really no point. But the fact that, I can't speak for Don, but I can speak for myself, because as I, sitting here and playing through my role-playing games, and the question just, it popped into my head, and I said, are there more people out there in the world like me? Or, I mean, am I just really a small percentage of weirdo? And I was like, you know, with the internet and YouTube now, and, you know, great resources at our fingertips, we can find out. And I guess you could say the rest is history.
Yeah, that's why my channel's here. I mean, your channel, like you said, you primarily played solo. Well, I was one of those, I was those normal RPG players who played around the table with a bunch of people slinging dice for real. And I'm like, how in the world do you play solo? That don't make any sense to me. I couldn't grasp it. And as I was going down that rabbit hole trying to figure it out, that's when I came across the Game Master Assistant cards, and I was playing some cheap off the wall, no one's ever heard of RPG. I got off drive-through just because it was simple, and that was my eureka moment. That's why my channel exists, because of these cards. That was my first video. I was like, you know what? I can't be the only idiot out there who has an RPG collection, who can't find a group nowadays for whatever reason and wants to figure out a way to play solo. I can't be the only idiot. Somebody needs to be brave enough or idiotic enough to go on YouTube and help people like me. And then one day I decided I'd be that idiot. Here I am.
Idiot, man. You're not an idiot. Trust me. If you are, then that.
Well, Rob, you're already an honorary member of the asylum. So.
Okay, so Sean Baldwin, he says Greyhawk is the OG setting. Okay, the original gaming setting, Greyhawk. Yep, I still have my original hardback book. I remember my dad. I remember getting that at Toys R Us when Toys R Us. Are they back? I don't know.
Toys R Us are gone. Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah.
I saw on the news they were going out, but.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. It's original setting. For those of you watching this, if you're not familiar, that's the original setting Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson created for D&D.
I think you might be right. My understanding is Gary Gygax made Greyhawk, and Dave Arneson made Blackmore.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Okay, number one. How do you force limitations on your solo sessions as to not go too far off the beaten path story-wise? Okay, so this is where I emphasize the use of an antagonist in your storyline. A good example I'm going to use, something I think the vast majority of people out there watching understand. And let's take a look at Sauron to Middle-earth. Sauron is the antagonist. Sauron is constantly challenging characters and the storyline, and this is what's perpetuating the whole story forward with the destruction of the ring. And that's how I utilize antagonists in my solo RPG, and they really help. When you notice your storyline is starting to kind of veer off, at that point, it's time to bring the antagonist in and shake things up a bit and bring your characters and everything back into focus as to why they're here in the first place. And that's how I use it. That's one of the tools I use.
And my answer is going to be simple one. Simply utilize good old-fashioned common sense. If the story if you roll something on a random table and it just don't make sense, ignore it, either re-roll it or it never happened.
Okay, so one asks again, Rob, what are your favorite historical RPG setting guides, books, PDFs, history, books, etc.? Don, what inspires your genre for a solo session? You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll let you go first.
Okay, so favorite historical RPG settings. I really don't have historical RPG settings. Mostly everything I have is high fantasy. But when it comes to history itself, my favorite, I'm going to say, area of history is the Knights Templar. Particularly one of the things that really attracted me to that and brought me in is, Friday the 13th. If people don't know where the origins of that actually come from, it comes from that time period from Jacques de Moy. And I don't want to go too far off the beaten path here, but yeah. So that's my favorite part of history right there, would be the Knights Templar. And over to you, Don.
All right, what inspires for my solo session, my genre? Well, it depends on what I've recently read or what I've recently watched. A perfect example was when I was checking out the Age system and I was playing Dragon Age, and in that game, the character creation process is really tied into the setting. You don't play an elf mage or a human warrior. If you're playing a mage, you're either playing an apostate, which is somebody who's being hunted down for being a mage, or B, you're in the academy or that main academy in that world, or 3, you're an escaped slave. Well, and the escaped slave pretty much covered every race class combination you can play in that game. So I made 3 escaped slaves, and the whole story was based upon what I just watched on the Showtime's remake of Spartacus. I was literally reliving Spartacus. Whatever I saw in the first 5 minutes of the next episode, that was what's going to be the start of my RPG session, if it was applicable. Because obviously they have their storyline, but then my story may have went somewhere else. But that was the general inspiration. I was like, I'm an escaped slave. And oh wait, this 3rd season, I think, of Spartacus was all about them escaping and avoiding the Roman Empire. I just took that and threw it in a fantasy world.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I'm going to add a little bit to that, Don. I could say, like, a lot of my ideas for solo RPG, I enjoy watching documentaries on history and learning about history, but I'm also a huge horror buff and thriller movies. And a lot of times I will get some of my ideas. One of my one-off solo adventures I did was after watching a series on Netflix, and I believe it was called The Grass, I think it was. And it was about these people that were stranded out in this countryside, and they had to cross through this large field of grass to be able to try to get out of this predicament of being stranded where they were at. But they never explained really if this grass was, had a I'm going to say an evil malintent to it, or for whatever reason. But as people went in, they got disorientated and lost, and eventually they were ultimately killed by these large fields of grass. It gets back to the old Alfred Hitchcock type of stories, which I really liked about his, and I like to put into my RPGs, which is Alfred Hitchcock never showed you the monster. He always left it up to your imagination, and he always said, your imagination could come up with a more frightening monster to scare the hell out of you than anything he could ever put on film.
Yeah,
so
George Lucas did the same thing with the original Empire Strikes Back with the Wampa. All you saw was its hand. And he said he used that exact same quote. I can come up with, your mind's going to come up with a better looking Wampa than I could put on screen. It just wasn't until the special edition enough people said, I want to see what the Wampa looks like, that he threw that quick scene in with the actual, you saw the Wampa. But his original idea behind Empire Strikes Back was, all I want you to do is see that claw, see the devastation, Luke getting knocked off the Tauntaun getting killed, and let your imagination run with the rest of it.
And there is some food for thought. I'm not trying to drag this out a little bit, but just look back through American history. Look at some of our greatest unsolved mysteries, which have never been solved. That could be great ideas for RPG and solo RPG. One of them, I'm going to use an example of Roanoke. I mean, they have speculation, but still to this day, they don't know where the people went. And there's things still going on. I remember back it was right around 2012, 2013, when the story broke. It didn't get a lot of mainstream media coverage, but there was independent media that covered it. And it was up in Alaska, and the entire village of people, animals, pets, people, everything disappeared. They don't know what happened to them. They don't know what, where, nothing. That raises a lot of questions. All
right, I'm gonna throw out a complete side note. Has nothing to do with RPG, but it does touch on what you just said. about
Okay.
the village of Roanoke disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a TV show. They did a remake called Sleepy Hollow that addressed that particular one of the episodes addressed that particular that situation. I at that time was living close enough that I was almost signed up to be an extra on that show. I didn't make that show. I was an extra on another show years earlier, but that particular one I couldn't make it that day. I was actually working, but I almost became an extra on that show.
Oh, wow. That is cool. That's that is very, very interesting. We got a
Yeah.
movie.
But no, it was a TV show, and the TV show that I was actually on, I was only on for the TV show was only on for one season, and I was only on screen for like 2 seconds, and unless you knew me and knew where to look, you wouldn't find me. But I always joke, man, they never gave me my Academy Award for Best Male Actor in a non-speaking role in a primetime drama. But if you ever go watch the old TV show, Mom, what was that TV show I was in? I can't remember it now. What was the name? Oh, Surface. It was called Surface. It was about the underwater animals the big monsters that came out of the ocean near Wilmington, North Carolina. That's where the show was filmed at for the most part. And in episode 3, in like the first 10 minutes, they're wandering around this basically alien con. Well, I'm one of the guys in the background. When you see the main actress walking forward, I'm in the background acting stupid.
Okay, so let's get back to some questions here, and because we got quite a few that look like they got
Yeah, it looks like a bunch of bopped up.
piled up. Okay, so
I
let's
think we are.
Uden, which is if the storyline you are following is fun, keep going. My rule for random story rolls is to generate more than one and take the one I like best. Okay, that's a good suggestion.
That's perfectly valid.
Yeah, that's the thing about solitaire. Let's move on to this other question from Troy Williams. I'm reading these comments on my smartphone and very small, and I'm like, really having to lean in here. So I just got into playing solo game. I'm into Forgotten Realms and Eberron, Rising from the Last War. I use both. I use the D&D 5th edition rules with my homebrew world. I really like the world. Really like.
Probably autocorrect stepping in, but yeah, that's perfectly viable. Forgotten Realms, Eberron, 5e. If that's your bag, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think me and Don could both agree on this. There's certain games out there that we like, and other games maybe we do not like, and it's not that the fact that it's not a good game or a viable game. I think how some people would take it. It's just maybe the game doesn't fit our taste. Maybe that's.
I'm not a 5e guy. I mean, I played 5e once, but it had nothing to do with the fact it was 5e. It was because the guy that I had met playing 3rd edition, he knew nothing about role-playing games whatsoever. We taught him 3rd edition, and it was about time 5th edition came out that he said, you know what, guys, I want to try my hand at DMing. We're like, all right, go ahead. 5th edition was brand new. He had the books. Go for it.
All right, so we get back to number 1. He says, thank you at Flame. Having multiple threads to follow would be a good idea when the trail goes cold or stale, not just for focusing on one story to carry you through the session. I agree. That's the reason why I made the suggestion, like following a creative writing type of structure, because it's going to help you really flesh out multiple plot lines and threads, NPCs and stuff like that. Okay, so moving on, we got Fred Daniels. This is for you here, Don. It says, Tomb is an awesome generator for starting ideas.
That was what I had to work with, and yep, it was an awesome generator for Dungeon Crawl. Just, I mean, one time, just for grins and giggles, I would just reach in there, grab 5 random cards, and literally put it in order like you were when you're playing the game, and that's how my RPG character handled it. Okay, how do I get past this curse? How do I get past this trap? Now I got to fight this monster. Oh, maybe I'll get this treasure.
Okay, so we got 3 comments from Troy Williams here. I'm just going to read them back to back. So It starts out, Forgotten Realms and Eberron to me works great, but I do like solo gameplay, smiley face. Troy Williams, both role-playing books have great source suggestions to use. And then his last comment was going to be solo adventure rocks. I have to agree with you, Troy.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then, let me see, moving on from there, let's go back to Flame of Udin. And I love home brewing, but I have a terrain addiction problem. I can sympathize with you there. I often miss a game session because I am building a new set. Well, here's the thing. And I made suggestions about this if you enjoy that. Ranges of Shadow Deep is an excellent one where you utilize a lot of your terrain and minis. Something else, basic dungeon crawler, but it can help you game. It can help set some things up, and that's 4 Against Darkness, but not as a role-playing game, as a miniature dungeon crawl game, because it's going to help randomize dungeon areas, populate it with monsters, and move your minis across the board for basic combat. So, there's just a little suggestion. Not that you have to take it, but
I don't have a terrain addiction problem only because I don't have enough room right here to store it. But trust me, I probably have more terrain if I could. The only problem I have with terrain, though, is usually the walls are so high that you can't see your figures. I need one of those terrain sets that have the half wall set, but not the full wall set, because I actually have a cardboard set and I don't use it because I can't move my miniatures around unless I have a half wall set. That's why I like the Dungeons and Dragons board game tiles. Those are perfect. They interlock. If I bump the table, they don't fall apart, and I can see everything that's going on. Instead of the walls being in the way, I can put in the accoutrements like the bed and the storage stuff and the barrels and all that other cool stuff that provides the cover and all the other good stuff that applies to an RPG.
So, question here. I'm gonna pull this out. Show that. So, what is your favorite terrain to use for solo minis or just drawing it out? Okay, so this is a question. I could go off for a while.
Go ahead and go for a while. I gotta go take care of something real quick. Keep them busy. I'll be right back. So, unless you need me to stay while you grab something.
When it comes to soloing, if I'm doing dungeons. Now, one of the sets I picked up was the Warlock tiles, the Master Dungeon set, which comes with the, let me see here, the pre-painted dungeon tile sets that are plastic and they snap together and they're really cool because you can set up a pretty elaborate map on your table and it's pretty dang durable and it lasts. Downside is I picked this up on a Black Friday sale and the set was $60 on a flash sale where normally, these sets are north of $100. So what I really like to do is utilize scatter terrain. Scatter terrain is inexpensive and you can make it relatively cheap. And the nice thing about scatter terrain is you can put it on your table and you can recycle it and reuse it quite often. So now, basis for drawing it. Well, before I had all my terrain, and where I started out was drawing it, and then getting back to DM Scotty, I had watched a couple of his videos how he was making terrain, and I said, I can do that. And then I started making all kinds of cardboard terrain until I ran into a problem. And the problem was, where do I store all this crap? Was the problem I ran into. And then I had started getting more durable plastic scatter terrain pieces and painting them to where they could be recycled and far more durable for what I got to do.
And like I already said, my favorite terrain, if I'm doing a dungeon thing, is the D&D board game. I do have actually I used it as a tablecloth, but I got one of those 4 foot by 4 foot neoprene mats that's the grassland. There's my outdoor. And just in case I get into a miniatures mode, I do have a 3x3 neoprene mat for dungeons that I can put, my walls up if I really want walls. But Normally, I just put down something to indicate where the wall is, and then the important terrain that the miniatures can use for cover is on the board. But that's, for me, that's my favorite terrain to use, is the D&D board game stuff, and then it's accented with the Dungeon Saga stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the really, for solo play, one thing that works out very well is one of them $20 Chesic mats where you got the hex, the one side.
I got 2 of those too.
And you got the, your graph grids or your square grids, however you want to look, reference that. And I mean, those are some of the best, to be honest with you. I use those in conjunction with scatter terrain.
Yeah, like I said, I have 2 sets that are still left over from when I played in the group. I mean, they're rolled up. I haven't pulled them out much because, at least with the neoprene mat, with everybody living here, the neoprene helps lessen the dice rattling noise. So
yeah. Now one of the things I have noticed about them neoprene mats that and you got to be real careful about this, is they advertise the use of dry erase markers and how well they work. They don't. As a matter of fact, they do stain.
Not the neoprene mats. You're referring to the ones that they base off the whiteboard. You're talking about the whiteboard. Not the neoprene is the mouse pad material.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I got what you're saying now. Okay. All right. So we got some more questions coming in here. Number 1, very neat terrain set, spendy but cool. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I would have never picked it up unless it was that price. Trust me. My wife would have a few words to say about that. Jonathan Rector. Man, this is great to be a regular show. Just popped online. This is great. You're welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan, for stopping by. I know he's a strong supporter on both my YouTube channel and Facebook group. I believe he's obviously in your group as well. Yeah. He actually, guys, okay, I haven't done one yet, only because he's done it. But if you go to his YouTube channel, he'll give you a class on this. Okay, go watch his YouTube channel. There, Jonathan, you got free promo right there.
Okay, so number 1 says, how long are your typical RPG sessions? So when it comes to an RPG session, for me, I play it until I get sick of playing it. Then it's time to retire it. Thing about an RPG that most people new to it, when they get into it, they have to understand is it's not a win-lose game. It's a storytelling driven type of game system, and it can go on as long as you want it to go, or end it when you want to end it. How about you, Don?
Well, before I had to move down here, when I lived alone, and my dining room table wasn't used for anything, I had everything set up there, the terrain and everything set up constantly 24/7. If I had 5 minutes to play because I'm getting ready, to go to work, but I don't have to leave for the 5 minutes, and I got 1 or 2 more rounds of combat to finish out, I'll do that. On average, when I lived alone, each session was, roughly 2 hours before, the brain starts getting tired and you're like, okay, I need to take a little break. And then it depends, there'd be other times where I'd have a whole weekend off and it's like, you know what? I'm just going to sit down here all day Saturday and not worry about the outside world. So it all depends on my mood, anywhere from 5 minutes to all day.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Okay, Troy Williams asks, what's your favorite homebrew campaign that you have did or solo played? What's your favorite? So one of my favorites that I still go back to, and I really enjoy, actually, it's 2, and they're both formerly, what we call Wizards of the Coast, which is known as TSR, the originals, which is Castle Ravenloft and the Temple of Elemental Evil. Those are still by far some of my favorites, but that's a hard question to ask when you have a lot of RPG games, because that can change day to day.
Yep.
Counter, and how many characters were lost in the process.
Yep. I mean, I didn't homebrew it. I pretty much played it straight out of the book, but my most favorite solo RPG session came from playing Simba Room But as far as my favorite homebrew, I really didn't homebrew that one either, but any one of either Gods of the Fall or the God Forsaken campaign, either one of those from the Cypher system. Because it's generic enough that it can fit pretty much under any RPG, but it's specific enough that you don't feel like you're playing a generic game.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to we got one from Flame of Uden. If space is an issue, try this. Map the dungeon on graph paper. Use scatter terrain and minis for each room. You can focus on the room you are in, but have a master map. Absolutely.
I do that. That's what I was doing. Yep.
Okay, and he hits on a great subject. All RPG systems, that's the way it is intended to be done. Typically, you'd be relying on your game or dungeon master to set that up for you for a visual aid if they choose to do so. I think visual aids make RPG systems way better, whether you're in a group or solitaire experience. That's just me. Some people enjoy theater of the mind only.
And actually, some RPGs are written in a way that, they're only theater of the mind. Ironsworn being a perfect example.
So Jonathan Rector, ha, 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 you guys are too much.
Like I said, he's a strong supporter for both our channels.
Okay, so Jonathan Reactor asks, Artichoke, I know you reviewed Ironsworn. Have you ever gone back to try it again? Powered by the Apocalypse games have been awesome for me. Just curious. I haven't since so let me get back to this. So you can't see it back over here behind me in the camera, but let me just so we got a stack of books. We'll just say that's a very small stack you can see there. These are RPGs I have started to read and have not yet gotten into to start playing. Typically, I get hung up on one and I stick with that for a while. And then once I get sick of it, I grab the next one in line and sit down and read it and play it till I get sick of it. Move on. Ironsworn.
I think Jonathan's got us confused. I don't think you did a review on Ironsworn. I think he might be mistaking that with me or somebody else. I did a review of it.
I did do a review, and the author was a little upset with me because what I said, my biggest complaint about it was the fact that the way that the book was laid out, you were constantly flipping back and forth through it. So you're spending more time trying to chase down book pages than playing. And I thought that the layout could have been better. And the author, I believe, got extremely frustrated with that or angry with me, like I was killing his game system or saying something bad about it. And I just said, no, I don't like game systems where I'm constantly flipping back and forth through the book. It just doesn't do it for me.
Well, luckily somebody else fixed that problem. There's a product, the Traveler's Ironsworn you can get on Drive-Thru-RPG that you print out, and it's like all the important charts are condensed down to like 6 pages. Now, as for me, let me throw out my 2 cents, and I'll turn it back over to you. As far as for me, I love Ironsworn more as a game emulator than an actual game. Obviously for Powered by Apocalypse type games, that's a very good game to have. But I actually take the Ironsworn delve mechanics and literally impose that on almost every RPG. If I can't find an emulator that pops into mind when I'm reading the rules, I immediately pull out I have the book, but I also have the cards for the delve mechanic, and I immediately do that. That's my point crawl, dungeon delve, hex crawl, point crawl go-to system right then and there. That's just me. I'm the weirdo.
And I think with a lot of people, and I emphasize this a lot, not every RPG game is going to really pique everybody's interest in the same way. Everybody's going to have different interests, different type of mechanics, stuff like that. And I'm not saying Ironsworn was a bad game. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying Ironsworn
it didn't do it for you. Like I said, the base game didn't do it for me. I mean, the base game's okay, but the delve mechanic is great. I use, like I said, I superimpose that in almost every RPG.
Okay, all right. Maybe I'll have to look at that in the future, but currently I have a huge stack that I still have to get through.
Well, actually, you'd have to go, but you'd actually have to spend money because I know the Ironsworn PDF is free, but the Delve mechanics that I'm referring to is in the second book, and that one actually costs money whether you get the hardback or PDF.
So here's one from number one again. It says, "What's your favorite solo tool for removing the blank page syndrome of writer's blocked related problems?" So he's talking about, he's saying, hey, how do you take care of essentially writer's block is what he's saying. So when the game begins to kind of get, we'll say, stale or too mechanic-y gamey, I guess you would say. Yep, there's one idea, one you can use. So the other thing that if you play a solo RPG and you're going at it to where you have your protagonist, antagonist, you have your multiple story plot lines, NPCs, stuff like that, the way that those will intersect and cross over one another should prop up new game ideas, story threads, chase down, and stuff like that. So that's where I get back to this right here. Just like Don, I have to agree with Don 100%, the adventure crafter, because what this helps, and what a lot of people I think struggle with, is when have you played out that scenario? When have you literally squeezed every last bit, drop of blood out of that turnip, and now it's time to move on to something else, and people stay too long, and then that's what they run into. Whereas with the adventure crafter helps put time restraints on it. It teaches you time restraints, teaches you when, okay, this session has lasted long enough, it's time to end it and start a new one and move on. So it's you know, I hope that helps. It's one of the many tools out there for solo players that we have today.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, adventure crafter is like number one. If you have writer's block syndrome, I mean, literally, we're going to do a live demo right now. Okay, Rob? We're going to do a live demo. I know you got the book, but rather than you flipping through a bunch of pages, I'm just going to flip a couple of cards. All right.
Okay.
Now, you know, we'll give a quick class on the adventure crafter. I want you to choose for me what type of what's your theme of choice? Social, personal, mystery, tension, or action?
Definitely mystery.
Okay, mystery. All right. I'm gonna make mystery number one, and let's just assume. I mean, I know normally you lay all the cards out in order from top to bottom, but we'll just stick with a mystery. All right, Rob. The mystery is good shuffle, and just to set, you know, the baseline, we're in a token-esque world, so most people can relate to that. Your mystery, and you're playing your current character. I don't know what the current character's name is, but the mystery revolves around, unfortunately, that was none. That don't count. We don't do none. A character disappears.
Okay. So
basically, that would tell me that just off that card alone, one random NPC, pick one, comes up to your character and says, "Hey, have you seen so-and-so lately? I haven't seen him lately. I've been looking for him. I have a question for him. Where's he at?" You've already started that. Now, let's see. It gets a little more mysterious. Useful information from a known source. Well, obviously, it just happened. So-and-so disappeared, and the known source, said NPC, just came up and told you. So that card literally just wrote itself.
And
hidden agenda. Let your mind wander and figure out what hidden agenda would relate to that. And that was just off drawing 3 cards.
And the cool thing I like about that system is what it does is it helps put in ideas. And I said this before, that maybe necessarily you would not really think about, or you may think, hey, I would never really put this into my gaming. Maybe I wouldn't be comfortable with it or whatever else. And then you find out it puts a pretty good twist on things and starts to open up different story avenues that maybe you have not thought of before. Getting back to what Don was saying with the disappearance, that could be taken in so many ways. It could be a place. It could be a particular person, an event. It could be so many things that could add into your story and also give you ideas for the future and creating different, whether it be story or campaign ideas, as you want to refer to as the homebrew. So, all right, let me move on to, okay, we got Neil Thompson, and he says, it's 1 a.m. here in England. Great show, guys, but off to bed. Thanks to you both. You're very welcome, Neil. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for stopping by. Good night.
Deploribus Rex, can you elaborate on the delve mechanic a bit? Question mark. I'll let you.
Well, Rob, I guess since you're the anti-Ironsworn guy, I guess this is a question for me.
There you go.
I'm going to, let's forget the Ironsworn game itself. I'll show you what I mean by imposing this on another game system. Everyone out there knows D&D, or pick your any OSR system. When you're delving the depths, or you're going through said forest or said mountain, you decide how difficult it is, and you put those little 10 blocks up at the top. I'm operating under the assumption most of you know how Ironsworn Delve works. If you don't, watch some other videos. There's plenty of them out there. But you decide how difficult the task is to get through said dungeon or through said forest. And then you decide how you're getting through this dungeon. Are you going by edge, which is kind of like being, edge in this game, you're supposed to be kind of fast. I treat that as an athletics check in D&D, because you're just trying to move through the dungeon as fast as you can. You're not looking for obstacles. You're just going from point A to point B as fast as you can get. Shadow, that would be if your character is like a rogue and you're sneaking through, you're being stealthily. And then wits is you're just using your mind to navigate. Well, when you roll said D20, if you pass the test, that would be the equivalent of a weak hit in Ironsworn. If you roll a crit, it's equivalent to a strong hit. And if you fail, whether you fail or crit fail, that's equivalent to a failure. And then you roll, of course, on the appropriate chart as it, I think if you, in this particular instance, if you do a strong hit, you find an opportunity. So you roll on the find opportunity, and I'll convert that to your game system. So if I found an opportunity and I rolled a 69, you get a drop on a denizen. All right, that tells me that as I'm going through said dungeon or going through said forest, I came across a creature and I have the advantage. I can sneak attack them. I'm going to attack first. Everything combat-wise, round one's in my advantage. If I happen to roll mark progress, of course, you mark your progress accordingly, because once you fill that box up, you've pretty much completed the dungeon. Just do one more random roll check to make sure it's legit, and then poof, you've got a time length now for how long you should be running around said forest or running around said dungeon. I hope I explained it well enough, because obviously for those of you who don't have Ironsworn, I just spoke Spanish for the last 5 minutes. But for those of you who do understand Ironsworn, hopefully I was able to explain it well enough how you can use this with any game system you got out there.
All right. So next we have Troy Williams, and he says, thanks, real old school like myself. I love the ideas. Great show. Thank you, Troy, for joining us.
Thank you.
What? Oh, I'm sorry, Don.
No, I was telling Troy, thank you for visiting, and good night.
Flames of Uden. At 1, when I find combat is getting grindy or the story is stale, try a unique encounter at a timer. You have to escape before a volcano explodes on turn 6. Adding a third element forces the action. I agree. Have you ever played Blades in the Dark, Don? Have you ever?
I haven't played it personally. I've seen it. I've watched playthroughs on YouTube, and I've read some of the various Forged in the Dark game systems, but I've never actually played it. So
he's absolutely right. It's a unique game, and it uses timers. So they basically pie charts. and then shaded in after certain events happen, certain story points, encounters, so on and so forth. And it kind of builds up anticipation in your gaming. And because if this happens again, this timer's complete, and then this is going to happen as a result of it. So it does help change the dynamic of gaming. And for solo gaming, absolutely. That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Blades in the Dark works. I loved how they set that up and how they put that in there. And it's definitely a tool to help move things forward. Okay, let's see here. Rob Don, this is from one again. I think you really hit home with the reoccurring strong antagonist / force / and adventure crafter. I'll look through the product and see if it helps me out. Thank you for the product demo. Smiley face. Well, you're really welcome. And the reason why, I'm sure Don feels the same way, that, we talk about that is because it works. It works great. It works
if
really.
If something that helps us might help you. Before you spend your hard-earned money, just type Adventure Crafter in YouTube. Obviously, Jonathan Rector did a video on it, and I forget the other guy's channel, RPG Solo Tips or something. I think he did one on that as well. So watch both of those, because I think those are only two on YouTube with the Adventure Crafter as the subject, where you actually get somebody telling you how to work it the right way from beginning to end.
Okay, so Deploribus Rex, thanks Donald, ! Deploribus Rex and Rob, very welcome. Number one says, gotta sign off now. I'll watch the rest of the show when I can. Thanks for doing this. It was really fun. Great show. Thank you for your questions and comments, and game on, my friend.
Yep, thank you for keeping us busy tonight.
Yeah. So it looks like we have reached the end of the comments, unless we have more coming in. And
just real quick, I'll just check Facebook one more time.
I have not checked. Let me see here. I'm going to do the same thing. That's the thing about Saturday night in my house. The internet moves so slow because everybody's online.
All right. Well, here, I got one for you. Well, we got Luke Wharton has asked two questions. First question is, what is your favorite combat system for solo play and TTRPGs in general? For me, I'm going to say the Cypher system.
Okay, what is my favorite combat system?
Yeah, what is your favorite combat system for solo play and for tabletop RPGs in general?
I would have to say by far my favorite of all of them out there would be the RuneQuest system, where it's a percentile-driven combat system, but you use a D20 for the hit locations. So it can be extremely brutal, and it works both ways, where you can hit an encounter, but if you score a headshot and it exceeds the hit point level, that encounter's automatically killed and taken out. But, on the other side of that coin, the same holds true for your character as well. So it can be extremely brutal. It's fast-paced and fun, and, that's my favorite. I love RuneQuest Battle Matrix. It is awesome. I encourage anybody, if you really want a really gritty, grueling type of combat system that's very descriptive about the harm inflicted on the encounters, check it out.
All right, and the second question is, well, first he says cheers to Don and Dip, but he also says, what is your hands down favorite dungeon crawler hack and slash game?
Hands down favorite dungeon crawler. Oh man. Oh wow. I'm looking around here.
You're looking around. Yeah, For me, it would probably be Tomb. That's just me. I mean, I have the Castle Ravenloft and the Castle, or yeah, Wrath of Ashardalon and Castle Ravenloft. I'm not wild on those systems. I just like the tiles and the miniatures. As far as game though, I would say Tomb.
When it comes to a solitaire dungeon crawler, I still have to say I think one of my favorites I'll pull down and I'll play because it has light elements of RPG with character building to it, advancing your character, equipment, stuff like that. But in fact, it is a dungeon crawler, and that is Massive Darkness. That is a dungeon crawling RPG light board game. Okay.
All right. Well, I think we've gone through.
Oh, we got some new comments that look like in here. Deplorable Rex says, awesome show, Rob. Would love to see more! ! Deploribus Rex, subscribe to Donald's channel too. Thank you very much, Deplorable Rex.
Thank you.
Ron Geppert, love this show. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you for joining us. And Flames of Uden, thank you both for indulging me. Love your content. Solo RPG is great. And we agree too.
100%. Thanks for coming by and keeping us busy tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is it's very fun. Idea that me and Don had come up with, and we're glad to get support from you guys. If you guys enjoy watching it, hey, I'm up for more videos.
Yep, same here.
So,
all right, I think that's all the questions. Let me check one more time.
Let me see. I don't have currently, I don't have any questions on my Facebook group that I am looking at.
Nope, I don't see it on that one post, but there was a question that somebody asked a couple of days ago, and we'll see if I can find it real quick so we're not just a bunch of dead air. Okay, here it is. Is it okay to mix other solo toolkit and replacing some to create new things? Well, obviously, the way this video has gone, the answer is yes, because we've just told you how many different ways we've combined RPGs with different various materials. So yeah, it's what you want. I mean, you can pick a random emulator, pick a random MPG or RPG, and put it in a setting written in another RPG altogether.
I was just going to say, I love the Frankenstein different game systems altogether. Campaign setting that I'm playing using Swords and Wizardry for is in Runebound, and it is the Wrath of Margath. And, Frankenstein that together with the board game, RPG elements, so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, I did a video, came up with a character idea I wanted to use, which is a necromancer, and put him in there. So absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing about solo RPGing. You're not literally the only thing that is a barrier for you is your imagination. That's it. Okay, here's one on my page I was going through, and this is an older question, but still nevertheless it is a question, and it says, generally speaking, do you prefer to play in an established setting or create your own as you go?
I mix and match all the time.
Okay, so I can get to that currently right here. So one thing I'm going to say, starter sets. I like to buy starter sets, and particularly with the D&D ones, and it's not the dice or the pre-generated characters or any of that other stuff you get in. It's typically the modules that they give you with them. And I have recently started playing this one, which is Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. They have just released this one. I had picked it up, pre-ordered it, and it was like $15 on pre-order, so less than what they normally charge. But I am using 3rd edition D&D to play it. I'm not using 5th edition, I'm using 3rd edition. It's pre-published, and the way that it's written is, it's this island of these good-hearted kobolds that are so happy to see me, but I made 2 half-orc characters. And typically, the way mine's going versus the pre-published adventure, now I'm changing it, is they have now infiltrated the island, and now the plan starts as to when the invasion's going to start to take the island over. So, I mean, yeah, don't be afraid to, mix, match, and
Yep.
stuff.
Do it all the time. No, the internet police will knock on your door.
That's the whole premise of it. And I want a word of warning I'll give you out there, especially, and I know people know this, I know it's no big hidden secret, but with more and more internet bots that are out there to really try to drum up more, we'll say, profit shares for publishers and stuff like that, you're going to maybe get inundated with comments like, oh, you're doing this wrong, you need to do it this way, don't listen to that. Take that with a grain of salt and throw it away, because a lot of times what you're seeing is people that are trying to say, hey, don't create that content for yourself. Why are you doing that? No, give us your money and we'll do it for you. So don't.
Unless you absolutely positively can't for whatever reason do it. You don't need to buy somebody else's stuff. You can make your own. I mean, or just, obviously you're buying other people's stuff when you're buying the RPG rule sets. I'm not talking about that, but you can make whatever you want to make. Period.
So Deploribus Rex put up a couple comments here. So the first one is, he puts, good-hearted kobolds laugh out loud. Yeah, that's what I thought too when I was reading through it, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. But okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, to say the least, this is the world we're living in today now. And his next one is, my gnome illusionist needs kobold blood to run his hollow deck, though. Well, I might be able to help you with that, because I got a feeling there's going to be a lot of kobolds getting slain in their sleep here pretty soon.
Yep.
So, yeah, awesome. All
right. Well, there's no more questions anywhere.
Yeah, and let's see. Next time we get together, that'll be, 7 days from now. Which...
Hold on. All right, Rob, this might be a question for you. I have one thing. I really struggle with a bunch of modules that I've never played before, but struggle with playing them solo. Any tips for soloing modules? Read it all first, ? I can't answer because I don't play pre-published modules. As far as pre-published modules are concerned, all I'll do is read the back and the blurb, and if I'm, think the story is interesting, that's my starting point. But obviously, my story is not going to follow whatever's in the adventure module. So,
okay, Jonathan, and this was referred to me. A mutual friend of ours, he had referred this. It was a little idea that a guy had published about playing pre-published adventures, and a lot of it was like I had explained in my videos about using what you want, and how he went about it. And I'm like, it's not a bad idea. Do you got to read through the whole thing? No, but here's some food for thought with a pre-published adventure. It's pre-published, right? So there's some benefits to it. It's balanced. It's been play tested. You have all those things that go into it. But what is limiting you? And what is limiting you and your characters from turning that world on its head? From going against the grain of the story narrative that Ed had put in there. Just like I said, looking at this, of course, the character's supposed to be coming in and being like, oh, yeah, you're such kind-hearted kobolds, and, oh, we'll do anything to help you out. I'm like, no, you're going to die. You don't know it yet, but, your impending doom is coming, because I don't agree there's any such thing as a good kobold.
Right. Same here. So,
when it comes to that, some food for thought. Read how I typically do it is, of course, you got to read in advance. You're going to have to read the DM parts. That's just, like I said, that's the downfall to them. It's like a book. Once you read it, you've read it. You know, what's more to say about it? But what you can do is you can say, this part seems really boring. I don't really want to play through this particular part of it, so I can either just cancel it out altogether, or hey, maybe it's a good access point to bring in a, I don't know, short-tempered pyromancer to go in and just completely burn the entire area down.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people have played published modules before, but I've never done it. And I know there's a product out there called DM Yourselves. The guy wrote 2 books, but I don't own them. I can't help you with that aspect. You have to do your own research on that one.
Yeah, and if you read, any pre-published module you read, when you read the introduction, it specifically tells you in there, for the game master's eyes only, if there's anything in here that you don't like or you want to remove, feel free and put in whatever ideas or you want. I mean, essentially, they're telling you right there, hey, if you want to turn the world on its head, go right ahead. It's your adventure.
Yeah. Oh, he responded, "That's totally fair. Thanks a bunch. Normally I do my own thing, but some of these modules, like Temple of Elemental Evil, sound cool as hell, so I want to try them all." Well, I mean, yeah, you can do the Temple of Elemental Evil. Just make it your own. You don't have to follow the module.
Yeah, yeah, they are very cool. I have tried my hand at Temple of Elemental Evil quite a few times. Unfortunately, I just keep winding up with total party kills. So I keep going back. But they're a great resource, particularly if you're starting out as a solo RPG player. The nice thing about them is it shows you, basically, it's holding your hand and it's showing you how this is the way that the adventure is written. This is how all the encounters are balanced for the base of this adventure, so on and so forth. So it evens a lot of that out for you. One of the main things I can say a lot of people, when they start out solo RPGing, that they do is they grossly over-empower encounters to what the characters can actually handle. And a lot of people will say, my characters just keep getting killed off. Well, it could be, maybe instead of having a group of 30 goblins to defeat, maybe reduce it to 2 or 3 to start out with, and then work your way up to the mob of 30.
Yep.
Okay, Deplorable Rex says, laugh out loud, create a franchise selling cold bowl burgers to the nearest dwarven kingdom. Yeah, that could.
All right. I'm gonna have my kobold burger my way.
That could work. Mick Kobold.
Kobold King.
Kobold King, there you go.
Give him a little crown, tip it to the side, you're sitting there. I'll chill.
So, I mean, yeah, that's some food for thought, some things you can use out there. I agree with some of the published adventures. Still one of my favorite things out there, and it's very randomized. One of the more earlier randomized things that I've seen is the original Castle Ravenloft. And the tables that they give you in there, as far as the fortune tales of the gypsies go, traveling encounters and stuff, and so on and so forth. So there are good campaign modules out there that'll help you and that have a high amount of replayability. Unfortunately, they're far and few between. So with that being said.
All right, looks like we got one more comment, and I guess we'll just do this before we go, because I think we've been on for almost 2.5 hours. So hurry up, guys, and get your questions in before we take off, because we can't be here all night.
Ron
Geppert posted, TSR published some solo modules that were pretty good. You can probably use their solo systems on other modules. You can probably use their solo modules on other systems. Yeah. You can.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And for any of you out there, if you have access to the original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, flip to the back of the appendices. In there, Gary Gygax outlines, he does not condone solo RPG playing. He just said he's seen how it can become too random, why he suggested group play. But in fact, in the back, he sets it up totally for solitaire play. So for those of you that have maybe one of those lying around, pick it up, go through the appendices and read it. And I guarantee you'll find a lot of the information you're looking for. Perhaps you already have it in your library.
Probably. Trust me, if you're a gamer, you probably have the tools already in your hands.
Yes. I stress that a lot when it comes to RPG systems. Typically, if you pick up the core rule book, and depending on the system you're playing, some of them integrate all the encounters into it. Others make you buy that separately. But it's a great resource for you to pick up the Game Master DM's Guide because it gives you all those essential tables and all those things that you really need to run the game. And it'll give you a better sense of how to actually create it for solo play as well, because you're actually going to see the breakdown. What they're not going to show you that in the main core rulebook for the players.
Right.
Who should be oblivious to the horrors that are yet to come. Okay.
Floribus Rex wrote, OGDM's Guide is great. Yep, we just said that. And looks like the Janny just popped up saying, hey guys, well, welcome to the show. You missed almost 2.5 hours worth, but you can always go back and rewatch. I think we're getting close to winding down. We've been going for almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah. I was just thinking that. I was going to say today's the 15th.
Yep.
It'll be the 22nd, which if you're up to it, and will be our next time.
This upcoming weekend, I should be available. Now, the weekend after, I won't be because I'll be out of town that weekend for Halloween. I'm really throwing a surprise on an old friend of mine. But yeah, next weekend, yeah, we could be doing this again around the same time as long as our schedules are working. I mean, this was literally impromptu. Me and Artichoke had said, yeah, we'll do something today, but we had no plans until literally 5 minutes before we showed up. He goes, we're gonna go live. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and moving forward, when we talked about this, me and Don, I mean, we're going to cover everything, pulp culture. So don't think it has to be just strictly RPG, board games, movies, comics. Anything pulp culture. I think you agree, Don. You're, I think it goes without saying you're a pulp culture nut just like me.
Yep.
So, don't feel free, guys, to ask questions and we'll get to them. All right, so we got some more that popped up here. Fred Daniel, great stream and chat. Thanks, everyone. You're welcome. Thanks for joining us, Fred. Sean Baldwin, great show. Thanks, guys. Thank you for joining us, Sean.
Thank
John,
you.
Thanks, everyone. This was great. Agreed. John O'Connor, hi from down under. Hey, how are you doing, John?
Hey, mate. How's it going?
That's got, I know. I'm, here it is. He's in South Carolina. I see Don still wearing his, T-shirt, and he says down under, and here I am wearing this fleece. So freaking cold now because it's almost November up here. Awesome stuff. We'll definitely back next week. All right, Ron. I'm looking forward to it.
We look forward to seeing y'all. We're going to do it again. We will try to do it as often as we can, as long as you all have questions and we have content. We'll happily provide it for you.
Absolutely. So with that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, get it out there. By helping clicking the like button, the way that the algorithm will work, it's going to get more.
Smash the like button because that's the way the algorithm, it helps this channel out. And while you're here, after we hang up here, go over to my channel and do the same thing. Hit that subscribe button.
Absolutely. Check out Don's channel. Feel free to subscribe. Get him some support. We're always looking for a way to get this information out to new players just getting in. I can speak for myself as well as Don. We don't have any ill intent here. We don't make a living off of YouTube. That's just not the case. We're just two old gamers that enjoy gaming, that enjoy solitaire gaming, and we're like, hey, there's a way that this can be done, and here's some of the ways that we have found that works well for us. Maybe it'll work well for you as well.
Yep, pretty much. That's it. We're here to help you guys.
All right. So, yeah, like I said, feel free to share it, get it out there so other people can find the content and help bring them in. So, All right, my friends, with that being said, this is Artichoke Dip and the Solo RPG Guy, and we're going to be signing off. Game on, my friends, and we will see you next week.
Take care.